Hey lads, welcome to another boss killing guide from a Restoration Shaman point of view. We are at Vexamus, which is one of the first 3 bosses in Algeth'ar Academy, depending on your routing, and we are looking at the footage from a +20 Tyrannical key. Debatably, this is the hardest boss in here, although the mechanics are pretty easy, but I got a request to do a boss guide on this one, so let's look at what's going to happen. Usually you want to have last save for this boss so you kill him as quickly as possible, and you already see the first mechanic in the fight. These orbs spawn around the room and start crawling towards the boss. The idea is you have to soak all of them or he gets a buff and starts doing significantly more DPS and damage. When you soak an orb, you get a little bit of damage done to you, but then you also get a debuff, which is stacking, and you get 200% more damage from the subsequent orbs that you soak. However, you can dispel that debuff, so as a range healer, I usually don't worry about orbs too much. I will soak 1 or 2 every now and then, but you can leave your melee and your tank soak most of them. If anyone gets more than 1 debuff, you can dispel them, then you can dispel someone else later, and the debuff also goes away after 20 seconds, so basically that's nothing to worry about too much. You can already see the second mechanic on the screen, Arcane Explosion. This is just a frontal cone that hits the tank, so make sure you're not standing in front of the boss or behind your tank. Generally, you don't worry about this too much because it doesn't do that much damage to the tank, but still watch him every now and then because he can drop low. I would suggest clearing Thundering as early as possible because some of the mechanics are not going to let you get close to your teammates very easily. And the next mechanic is already up. It's called Mana Bombs. 3 people in your group get a debuff, which is a ticking dot for 4 seconds. You can see that indicated by a circle around them and arrow on top of their heads. After 4 seconds, they explode, they leave a puddle on the ground. The explosion itself does double the ticking damage that you are taking from each tick from the dot, and then the puddle on the ground is also going to tick for damage every 1 second that you stay inside of it. I didn't get one in this particular case, but as you can see, that takes and does a lot of damage to whoever gets it. However, on a +20 Tyrannical key, as you can see, it still doesn't get the people from 100 to a 0 health, but you have to be watching them. If somebody's low, you actually have to throw a heal on them, top them up, pop the Ancestral Vigor so they can actually survive everything by themselves. And that brings us to the last mechanic, which is called Arcane Fissure. This is done when the boss reaches 100 energy. It's a big AoE damage to the whole of your party, and it's also going to knock you back a little bit. The most important thing here, after you're knocked back, the boss is going to start casting this arcane rain thing on the ground, so make sure you're moving and make sure you don't get hit by those, because they will probably one-shot you. And that's pretty much the whole fight. Those things just keep repeating. Here you can see that I actually get a mana bomb. So I'm just trying to run away with the circle and span the puddle somewhere away from the rest of the party, of course, and probably close to other puddles as well. Although the mana bomb itself is not going to kill you, you have to be watching yourself and not run into a mana bomb, which is going to do extra damage to you, and that could be the tipping point between living and dying in this particular situation. So from that perspective, if you're soaking an orb, try to do it early before the mana bomb so that you can actually top yourself up from the damage if you need to do so before the mana bombs actually explode. Other than that, you're actually not in a hurry to top everybody up because the next mana bombs are not going to be immediately after the first ones. So only panic if somebody is way too low and you know that they don't have enough health to survive an orb soak. The other thing to worry about is when the Arcane Fissure happens, you want to make sure that you're not standing in front of a puddle because the knockback is actually going to throw you inside of that puddle and you take extra damage. Obviously, you want everybody to be topped up before the fissure itself, and as you can see, I did not manage to get my mage to full health here. Luckily, they ice block, and I should probably move a little bit to the left so the knockback doesn't throw me inside of that puddle. Now, the mage was actually fine because I had a heal coming up for them, and the damage from the Arcane Fissure itself is not enough to kill you and one-shot you as well. This was actually the first cooldown that I used, Ancestral Guidance, and what I'm trying to say is that you do not need to top everybody up immediately after a piece of damage hits them, although you can drop pretty low, as you can see from the mana bombs. I'm not sure why I run so far with this one, but nevertheless, those things keep repeating. Now, the only thing that could kill you and potentially requires some cooldowns from your side is if you have an overlapping Arcane Fissure with mana bombs. As you can see, the Arcane Fissure is actually happening right now. It's not going to kill us, we have enough health to survive that, but immediately after that, or almost immediately after that, we actually get mana bombs. Those are the only situations where you'll be required to pop cooldowns. I'm not sure why I was running in Narnia over there. I was out of range for my mage, so I couldn't even heal them, but those are the things that could heal you. Of course, Ascendant, Spirit Link, they would be pretty good for those situations, and I usually use the Ancestral Guidance and the Healing Tide Totem just to help me top everybody up after Mana Bombs or Fissure. So although there's a lot of damage going on, it's actually a very easy boss, and the only thing you need to be prepared and afraid of is the overlapping mechanics, but for that you can also save personal defensives. Ancestral Shift is pretty good, and you can pop your Spirit Walker's Grace every now and then when you have to move from those arcane rain things that hit the ground, so you can top everybody up after the Arcane Fissure. Anyhow, you should not get that many overlaps from the mechanics in that fight regardless. So just watch your feet after Arcane Fissure and make sure you casually top everybody off after one of the other mechanics actually happens and drops everybody low. If overlapping mechanics happen, just pop a cooldown and then on to the next boss. You can see the talents that I use for this specific fight, and if you have a preference for any other boss that you can see a guide for on this channel, just let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, happy keying and happy healing!